Hey, I got Garrick DeMeyer on the show tonight. This is shaping up to be a pretty good early summer lineup that we got here at Proper Royals. Stick around. We will get right to it. Good evening, everybody. I hope that you are well. It's 8 o'clock on the East Coast to 7 o'clock here in, believe it or not, it is smoky out there. We're getting all the smoke from the Canadian wildfires. And my apologies to my Canadian friends. I hope you guys are all right. I don't even know where they're at. Like, Canada is this massive, massive expanse. I have no idea where these wildfires are at. But the Twin Cities are smoky today. They're advising people to stay inside. Even signs on the interstate said, I had to go up to FedEx to drop some packages. And even the signs on the interstate said, air quality warning, consider making fewer trips today. So anyway, I hope my Canadian friends are good. I hope those of y'all in the Midwest being affected similarly are, I'm not trying to over dramatize things, but it was hazy. It was an interesting view out there today. Anyhow, I hope you're well is my point. Coming to you tonight, ad-free, no more ads on Proper Royals Live content, both Tuesday night and Thursday morning. Proper Cup of Joe. Bam, brought to you by the good folks at Palm Street. If you're interested in applying to sell on Palm Street, the link is down below. It is a live interactive selling platform for reptiles. They do have geckos, ball pythons. You can get all the details in the application down below. And stay posted. I'll keep you posted if you stay tuned, and I'll let you know when I do my next Palm Street Live, probably at the end of this month. That leads right into my next announcement, which is this weekend, the Cold-Blooded Expos show here in Minneapolis. I think it's technically in St. Paul, but it's at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds. Cold-Blooded Expos, that's on Sunday. I will be there vending, and it's a really great show. It's this side of Tinley and probably north of the All-American Reptile Plant Expo down in Kansas City. It's the best show in the region. So I'm pretty excited for it, and they do a great job. And there's a lot of great vendors, big metro area here. So I always enjoy that show. Hope to see you come out. I think I'm bringing Lucy, the new, the little rat shop dog, the ASF monitor. She's a little slow on, I'm learning where the expression of either that dog will hunt or that dog won't hunt comes from. I'm not so sure that she's going to hunt. We'll see how it is. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Quentin, Ross. Oh, we got all the Minnesotans in the house. The Midwesterners. Jen, good to see you. And there's Shane. You're not first. You thought you were. A couple Iowans. Yeah, Chris in the house. Cool. Thank you all for being here. As far as other announcements, please check out properroyals.com if you want to snag anything before the show this weekend that I take to the market. Everything is up to date on there. I will be getting a shipment. I'm looking to my right because that's where I have them all hung up on my fridge. I don't know. I'll be sending about 20 shed tests over to Charlie at shedtesting.com this week. I don't think I'll have the results back. I know I won't. It's Tuesday night. I won't have the results back before the show. But I tell you all that because a lot of those are so that I know what to price those animals at. They're not going to be holdbacks. So they'll either be okay animals or they'll be pretty cool animals, depending on how those come back. So stay tuned on that. Keep an eye on Instagram. I'll keep you posted on that stuff. Also got some clutches starting to hatch in June. One of them's on day 51, and then I've got about one a week for quite some time. Still looking at around 35 this year from my ultrasounding the other day, so I'm feeling good about that. And otherwise, that's about all that's going on. In the summer, I go down to one live show or in-person show a month. So I'll do at least one live and one Palm Street show during the summer, maybe more. We'll see how it goes. So like I say, Minneapolis, Minnesota this weekend. Next month, July, I will be in Des Moines, and I believe August is the Snake Discovery Show I don't know if that's in Hastings or in Eau Claire. Doesn't matter. You guys can get in touch with me, and I will keep you posted and let you know. Garrick DeMeyer is back on the show. I looked back. I can't believe it. It's been 2.5 years since Garrick was on the show. And it's amazing to think that I've been at this that long, and I'm actually coming up on 4 years of doing this show on Tuesday nights. But it's pretty cool that that he's back. I've had a chance many times to meet and spend a little bit of time with Garrick. There's actually a show in Wisconsin that we both did for a little bit over a year. I've actually stopped doing that show just because of some of the logistics that we'll get into tonight. But it's always been cool to get to talk to Garrick. He makes time for me, for I guess everybody. I don't think I'm anything any more special than anybody else. And there's certainly people that spend more money with him than I have. So anyhow, it's always been a pleasure to get to talk to Garrick, and he's always been very generous with his time and knowledge and information. So I think you should stick around and enjoy the show tonight with Garrick. So please welcome back to the proper royal stage from Royal Constrictor Designs, Garrick DeMeyer. Garrick, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Just finished up a long day of work, and happy to be done sitting in this chair talking to you right now. Speaking of that, I've got a cold right now. I don't know how I got a cold in May, but I've been sick, I think 4 times this year already. And I had the flu like in January. Then I had something else in February. It's like every month something. And I got this cold, sore throat and, stuffy nose like about a week and a half ago. And I'm still working through it. It's just driving me crazy because it impacts my day of work, and it just impacts my life in general. And so anyway, if I'm sniffling at all, that's the reason why I can't quite kick this cold.
Oh man, so sorry to hear that. I didn't realize you were going through that. We can.
No, it's completely fine. I've just got to work. I'm at the tail end of it, but I still got to work it out of my system. It's just weird for me because I normally, if I get a cold once a year, that's the most, and I normally have very minor symptoms, and it goes along quick. And for some reason, this one's just lingering on. It's kind of driving me a little nuts, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I hope that you kick it. I know what you mean. When all you want to do is go be productive, and all you can do is just sit there and struggle through it. It's the worst.
And the thing is, I can't not be productive. Like I have so much to do that I can't. Like I don't take days off if I'm sick. I can't. Otherwise I just get further and further behind. I've got customers that are waiting on responses. Like I can't just take a day to just sit and just stay at home on the couch. I did actually. In January, I had the flu. I put in like a 13-hour day with 102-degree fever. And the next day, I'm like, you know what? I have to just rest. And so I just took it easy. I took it easy for part of the day, but I still managed to get shipments out that day. So, it's hard when you're doing so much of the work yourself, you just can't miss stuff. It'd almost be more work. Like if I would have had to cancel all those shipments or postpone all the shipments. First of all, it's in January, and if you get it, you're in Minnesota. If you get a good day to ship in January, you ship.
You get it out. That's right.
Condition you're in. So yeah, that's kind of where I was at, and but yeah, and this one hasn't been that bad. I haven't even felt like I needed to take any time off, but it's just really surprising that I came down with another cold. It's weird.
Yeah. There's a guy in the audience named Kai from Lucas Landon Royals. I remember he was on the show one time, and he said, "Don't think about what you can handle when you're your best with live animals that you have to run. You have to think about what you can handle at your very worst."
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like what you're describing.
Yeah, I've had some really, really rough days over the past 25 plus years of doing this full time, where you can't call in sick. You just got to do what you got to do. Yeah.
Well, how are outside of how you're currently feeling, how have things been the past? 2.5 years is a long time. Obviously, you're still going. You're still producing a lot of animals and continuing along. Any major changes in that time for you?
A couple. Because snakes aren't selling as fast as they were, 3 or 4 years ago, but even not as fast as they were, 8 or 9 years ago. They're just not selling the way they were. So I've cut back on my production a bit. From the height of COVID, I like 2 years ago, I cut back by probably like 35%. Right now, this year, I probably will be less than half of what I was doing then. I still have the breeder females here. I mean, if I wanted to, I could produce a frightening number of ball pythons, but I'm not, because I don't have the space for them. And I'm still trying to work through all of my stuff that I produced over the past couple of years. You know, like I've got a bunch of stuff left from 2022 yet. And the reason for that is because in 2020 and 2021, things were selling so fast. I remember in the spring of 2021, I had the lowest amount of inventory that I had probably since in at least 10 years. I had like maybe 150 snakes left from 2020 in the spring of 2021. So I decided, well, why not just produce more snakes? I can't handle the demand. I need to produce more. And back then I kind of had the mindset that I need to produce as much as I can, because I don't want to ever have a customer ask me if I have something available and for me to tell them no. So I try to produce more. So in 2021, I had a gigantic year in production. And the problem with that is it took me so long. I'm just dealing with a volume of babies. It took me so long to get them up for sale that it was into 2022 before I got all my 2021s for sale. But then I had another big year in 2022 with production. And by the time I got all those up for sale, the market shifted and went down. So all of a sudden I have all these 2022s that I'm having a hard time selling. And I still have a bunch now to this day. And then 2023 is the first year that I decided, okay, I'm not going to just try to produce as many snakes as I can. I'm going to try to produce, you know, a decent number, because there's stuff that I need to produce a certain number of clutches every year just to propel some of my projects forward.
Right.
And also for some of the stuff that I run out of. You know, I always run out of blue-eyed leucisticus. I always run out of albinos and like cheaper albino combos, bananas and cheaper banana combos, like that kind of stuff. I always run out of that. So I'm like, well, I have to make clutches of those. Otherwise, I'm not going to have what people want to buy. And so it still ended up being, I think in 2023, I produced 258 clutches. And in 2024, actually, weirdly enough, I produced 258 clutches again. Oh, this year, my goal is probably more for like 150, which sounds like it's an insane number. But in 2021, I produced 474, I think it was. So and obviously that's a really insane number. And I guarantee that unless something massive changes in the industry, I will never do that again. But even like the 150 clutches that my goal is for this year, that's still a lot. And most people, I don't recommend producing that many. My situation is a little bit different because I do this for a living. And I need to have a certain level of income in order to keep doing this. So I have to produce a certain number of snakes in order to pay the bills, basically. And a lot of the clutches that I produce are produced specifically to pay the bills. Like I don't have any intention of holding any babies back from that clutch. It's just snakes that I know people want and that I know will help me pay bills. And then I have a segment of my production where I'm trying to produce stuff to where I might get one baby out of like 3 clutches that I actually want to keep and raise up and get into my breeding project. And, it's unfortunate that it takes that many byproduct babies to produce the one that I want. But, that's what you have to do. I mean, if you want that next triple recessive or quad recessive combo or whatever, you got to take a lot of shots. And hopefully you hit on it early and then you don't have to keep trying it. And then you can move on from those like triple het females and hold back some double visual het, females, like things like that. And that I'm trying to get to that point as quickly as I can so that I can cut my numbers down. I don't want to have the number of breeders that I have. It's too much. The overhead is too much. The workload is too much. I mean, it's a lot, and I have help. I'm not doing it all by myself, but I'm doing a lot of it by myself. So to be able to do all that with the volume that I have, it's hard. I mean, it's really hard to keep up with. So I'm trying to get to a smaller collection where the clutches are like everything that hatches in the clutches is more something of what I want or something that I know I can sell, and not so much of like the byproducts that I just have to find somewhere to go with them.
Yeah. What's your balance of, and you touched a little bit on it, but what's your balance of breeding for your own projects that you're excited about and want to advance, and for revenue? And then I guess secondarily, what's sort of the sweet spot on those revenue numbers, when you're looking at, I mean, and I know you sell snakes from one end of the spectrum all the way to, doubles and triple visuals with combos in them. But where's kind of that sweet spot that you can rely on and that you're seeing in the market these days?
Well, I mean, I think a $300 to $400 snake is usually going to sell pretty well, depending on what kind it is. There's a big difference between two $400 snakes. If one is something that everybody wants to buy, and another one might be genetically more interesting but just not physically appealing.
Right.
So I mean, obviously I want my average dollar per snake to be as high as possible. Everybody does, but I try to, I'd say roughly half my collection or half of my production is geared towards stuff that I want to produce, that I like,
okay.
where I'm going to hit on, where I can kind of manipulate the odds, like breeding. It's blue. I keep coming back to blue endocysticks, but those are very popular, and I can sell out of them. I think I just sold my last one a couple of days ago from last year. I know what I'm going to produce with those because I'm breeding blue eye to blue eye. I'm not
correct. Yeah.
Any other genes in there. So I know if I get a clutch of 7 eggs, I know what they're all going to be. And I don't need to keep any because I've already got a well-established breeding colony of males and females. So, I can kind of gauge like what I'm going to make off of that clutch just from the number of babies that I hatch out. But yeah, it's I'd say a lot of my production is based on that. And then, there is a lot of production also. I probably should gear more of my production based on things that I know people want to buy, and maybe not quite as much on the stuff that I need to get to progress projects. And I say that because when I'm doing that kind of breeding, the byproducts are, in some cases, they almost don't have a value. If you hatch a pastel that's quad het for something,
right?
Especially if it's a male, but even the females don't sell that well. So
it's such a limited market on those, and trying to. I mean, you've been at the shows. I mean, yeah. In Rothschild, if we have to explain what a head is to somebody, like just glaze over, they're on to the next table.
Yeah, you have to have visually appealing snakes that aren't going to break their bank because they're buying stuff as pets. And I find that like the $300 to $400 range is typically the best range for pets, because I know if I sell a snake for $300, I know it didn't cost me that much to produce it.
Right.
And anything above that's going to be great. But when you're selling the byproduct stuff for $50, $75 a piece, like I know it cost me more than that to produce that snake. At least by the time you get done with all of the bills involved with having to produce it.
Yeah. When you do sell those, do you even bother with all the hets, or is it just marked as a normal and, hey, here's a ball python pet for you kind of deal?
Yeah. If I'm selling them at a show, that's normally how it is.
Yeah.
And actually a lot of times if I wholesale them too, I'll tell people what they are. Like maybe even a year ago when it was maybe a little bit more beneficial to have, to list those genes, I would tell them. Nowadays, if I had a normal that was triple het, like a normal male that was triple het for something, I'd probably just sell it for whatever as just a normal male, because anybody who's going to buy that is not going to really care or understand all those genetics. They just want a cool pet.
Right.
So I don't generally think, I think I'm actually kind of like, I'm changing my mindset on all that, like all of the hat stuff. Like even if I produce like pies that are het for desert ghosts and things like that, like unless it's a cool combo with some codoms in there that I think would be highly sought after, I'm actually at the point where I'm thinking I'm just going to sell them as pies on my website and put them up at $200, $250 a piece and just sell them, because you can have, like a pied het ultramel on your website and it could sit there for 6 months because you have a $50 higher price tag on it. And I would rather take less for it and move it out to make room. Right. And also the overhead of, when you figure it cost me probably $1 a week per snake to feed.
At least, yeah.
At least, yeah. By the time you get done with all that, you start adding that up after a while. If you have that snake for 6 months versus selling it at 2 months of age, that you're not making enough to justify the extra expense and the extra time and space that it takes up. So yeah, people seem to want, like, if they want to get like an Ultramel clown, they're not going to buy a clown het Ultramel and a double hat or something like that and make their own. They're just going to go out and buy an Ultramel clown. And so like that kind of stuff I want to keep and sell on my website, but all the byproduct stuff, I don't have the time or the space for it. And I mean, like, I'm still trying to get snakes up for sale that I produced in 2024. I probably have 300 snakes that I have not put up for sale yet because I haven't had the time. I've been dealing with, like, we've been running sales on a pretty regular basis. But between all that, like, I mean, when we do a sale, it's all I can do just to keep up with all the emails and inquiries and printing out shipping labels and packing shipments. I mean, yesterday I sent out 11 shipments. Today I shipped out 21 or 22. Tomorrow I'm shipping out 15 or 16. It's really hard to keep up with that and still get all of the other work done because I do so much of it myself that, I still have to feed all those animals. Like tomorrow, I got to pack shipments all morning and then I have to spend all afternoon feeding my baby room, which probably has 800 animals in it. It's all got to get done by the end of the day. And like I said before, I do have help, but there's certain things that I do myself. Like, I feed every animal in the collection myself. My employee, who's awesome, I just recently hired somebody new. I've had, like, employee situations has been the biggest problem that I've had in at least the last 10 or 12 years. Getting somebody reliable in there that's gonna, that's gonna put in the time and effort has been really hard. And I've got somebody now that is really good. Like, he's taken the reins on the rodent room, and he's really gung ho on getting that room revving up and going really well. And taking racks outside and hosing them down and using an air compressor, blowing them off and just disinfecting, cleaning everything up real good. New water lines, new sippers, everything to really maximize production for our rodents, which will, in theory at least, if we could maximize our production, we could save a lot of money by producing a lot of our own rodents. We'll never be self-sufficient, at least not nearly at the size of the collection that I have now, but it would definitely help if we could produce more of our own rodents. And he's really been good about, like, as soon as he started, he's like taken that on as his project. And then he helps me with a lot of the watering and cleaning and stuff too. But
nice.
There still is a lot that I have to do. Like, I'm the only person that answers emails. I'm the only person that answers the phone. I am the only person that does all the shipments and everything. Like, I do all that stuff myself. So it's kind of a limiting factor as far as like how much production we can have and how much I can handle.
How do you think you'll, we were talking backstage to start with, like, finding those efficiencies, whether it's making your own rodents or figuring out when you need an employee or when you need to do stuff on your own or various things like that. How has that changed for you? And I think the last time we talked, you mentioned briefly, but I had in my notes from the last show, you were looking to lower production down to around 400 clutches. And now you're aiming for like 150. Do you think that I think you just said you wouldn't, but how close can you get to producing for everything that you need as far as rodents and that sort of thing goes? But then also, like, what are some other like efficiencies that you find? What about feeding the rodents, like rodent food or hacks? And are you feeding all live these days? I know in the past you've done a lot of frozen thawed too. Do you still do any frozen thawed?
I do some frozen thawed yet. Yeah. I mean, the fact is a lot of customers want their snakes to be eating frozen thawed. So almost all of the stuff that I have for sale, I get onto frozen thawed. And then once they're eating frozen thawed, I'll switch them back and forth. If I have a big surplus of rodents, I'll feed everything live because it saves me a ton of time.
Right.
And, but on weeks that I'm short on live stuff, I'll feed them frozen thawed. So like my snakes to be versatile. I like it if my hatchlings will eat rats and mice and ASFs, and they'll eat live and thawed. That way, as long as they're set up properly by the customer, they should adapt and take whatever they're offering them. So that's kind of my thought about that. As far as the production levels, probably last time we talked, that's probably right around when I was still producing 400. I know at the time I was thinking, okay, I'm not going to ever do that again. I'm going to produce less. The problem is I still have an insane number of breeders.
Yeah.
So I'm working on reducing the number of breeders that I have. Ideally, I would like to have probably around 400 breeder females. And if I'd say over the last, 15 years or so, my success rate per female has been about 66%. So like 2/3 of every female that I try breeding produces for me. That could be a little over 300 clutches a year, which is really more than what I want. So there's probably some females that just wouldn't breed in a given year. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem is if I want to produce the variety that I'm producing and I want to produce certain projects and advance certain projects, I'm trying to think of a way I can do it without having at least 400 females. It's really hard. I mean, I might have to cut out complete projects that I'm working on because if I don't want that many females.
Right.
So
right.
That's a real challenge, especially for me, because I'm kind of a collector first, and I want to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Right. Have you stared down that yet where you're like, all right, I thought this was going to be a great holdback, but I just don't want to dedicate a whole other, vector of that pie of your own time to. I mean, have you had to do that yet? Or obviously you're thinking some about it, but
yeah, I haven't completely just decided against some projects, I would say, but I do look at my holdbacks. I generally, if I'm on the fence about something, I typically will hold it back. My biggest problem is I see babies hatching and I'm like, oh, I know what I could do with that.
Right.
And then eventually, I'll put them all in the holdback racks, and eventually I'll go through and I'll be like, yeah, you know what? The year after I produced that one, I produced something a lot better that'll get me to where I want to go quicker. I really don't need that one, or I held back too many of these and I don't need them all. I do that a lot now. I'm really trying to be more selective as far as how many babies I hold back. Every year I tell myself, okay, I only need to hold back 15 males, maybe 20 males this year, and maybe 50 females. And every year it's like, well, I held back 60 males and 75 females. And I can't help it because but the thing is, in order to stay, not so much with the stuff that's for sale, like I've got banana combo females that I'm breeding to really cool, multi-codon males. I don't necessarily need to upgrade or change those that much because they're already producing what I want. Maybe I throw a new male in there every once in a while just to produce something different or produce maybe get a little bit higher ratio of good animals to sell versus byproducts. But I lost my train of thought completely. Oh, with the I guess the higher end type of projects, I do have to rotate through my males and my females very quickly. Just like Desert Ghost Pieds, for example. 2 years ago, I only had double het females. And
nice.
I bred a Desert Ghost Pied double het females that had some codoms in there and produced my Desert Ghost Pieds that way. Well, I held back some of my female Desert Ghost Pieds, and then now I really don't need those double hets. I'm breeding them this year again, and then hopefully it'll give me a couple more cool combo females that I can hold back, and then they're gone. Yeah. Because I won't need them. And that same thing with the ultra male clown, all the double recessive stuff. I'd say I'm really trying to hit hard this year. I want to hold back as many female visual double recessives as I can, because then I could always hold back one really incredible double recessive, maybe plus codons male to breed with those. Right. Or I can go out and purchase a male that's got something in it that I don't have that looks really good with that, like a dreamsicle. I probably have 23 or 24 adult dreamsicle females, and probably half of those have codom genes in them as well, but a lot of them are just straight dreamsicles. But, you know, those animals, I mean, if I'm breeding a dreamsicle combo to a dreamsicle, the worst thing I'm going to produce is a regular dreamsicle.
Right.
Even if that's only a few $100s, it's still an animal that's going to sell quick because everybody loves them. So that's kind of, I want my collection of like nicer, higher end stuff I bought basically to consist of like double visual recessive females or triple recessive females, and then breed, you know, some specific codoms into them. But I just want, like, I want the worst thing, like with an ultramel pied project, I want the worst thing I can produce in that clutch to be a visual, just normal ultramel pied. That's going to be a good animal. It's going to sell pretty easily. I want to try to get out of the double het stuff. I want to get out of having like pied het clowns and clown het pies and things like that. I just want to have all of the visual double recessives and triple recessives that I can get my hands on, or that mostly just by producing them myself, I'll just hold them all back.
Right. What I love asking this question to everybody, but particularly to people that I really look up to. What's the last animal that you bought or acquired, whether it would be in a trade or whatever, but that you were like, man, I got to go get that animal? What was the last one that you've acquired?
It's been a while. I honestly haven't bought a new animal in probably 2 years, I'd say. You know, part of it is because, well, there's stuff that I want, but the problem is my tastes are super, super expensive. And I just haven't, you know, with the way the market's been, I just don't have the surplus money to go out and buy a $20,000 or $30,000 animal.
Well, that's a good point too. Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's been hard over the past couple of years. I'm not going to lie. This has been the hardest couple of years that I've ever had in 25 years of breeding ball pythons. This has been tough for me, and I'm trying to make adjustments, and like I said, trimming the collection back a bit, you know, doing some things to be more efficient. So I really haven't gone out and bought anything new lately. Most of the best stuff that I have right now, I produce myself. So that's kind of where, you know, I've been more into. I can't even think of the last snake that I bought. We might have to come back to that. I got to thinking, but it honestly might have. I know in 2022 I bought a desert ghost pied male, and that was, I remember that was $10,000 at the time. I bought him. I think it was the summer. Where was the summer 2023? Let me think for a second. I think it was the summer of 2022. So I bought a desert ghost pied male. It was about 100 grams, and I raised him up. I got him at the second NARBC in Schaumburg. And I got him, and I raised him up real quick. He was actually breeding females by the first week of January. And
oh wow, okay.
I think he bred 6 or 7 clutches from him that year. And he was only like maybe 7 months old when he started breeding.
Right.
And I'm not generally one for pushing my snakes either, but he just ate all the time. And I'm like, well, you know, if you want to keep eating, I'll keep feeding you. And he got big fast, and I still have him now. He's still a breeder of mine, and he's awesome. Hardly ever misses a meal. But I got him. I just figured that instead of breeding double het to double het, if I go out and spend this $10,000, I can get the double visual. And I'm going to produce so many more double visuals by breeding him to those double het females. Otherwise, you know, you take the chance you're going to produce your own double visual. And I'm doing that with some projects right now with Monarch Clown and Monarch Pied and things like that. But, by buying that double visual, I was able to just increase my production of valuable animals out of him versus what the double het male would have produced. You know, if I bred that double het male to 5 or 6 females, maybe I get one double male. And then you got a chance that you hit on a male, and then you got a chance that it's going to grow up and be ready to breed quickly. So, you know, there are some cases like that where it's just better to spend the money and buy what you want for your collection instead of trying to produce it. But I mean, like I said, even though I say that and I believe that, I'm still I'm doing like double het Monarch clown and double het monarch pie, and I've got some other double het projects that are a little bit rare as well, but I'm trying the old fashioned route of doing it basically.
Well, there's always a challenge, and you hit on it, but I mean, the reality of cash flow, I mean, there's only so many for just about anybody. There's only so many times you can throw around 10 grand at a pop. And like you say, on the one hand, you're buying yourself time and odds. On the other hand, it's 10 grand, and that's, we got bills to pay and animals to feed and all of that kind of thing. Let me see. Bullish, if you check out the beginning of the episode, we went really deep on production levels. I don't want to go back there again. So what, in that case, what genes, and you mentioned Monarch a little bit, but what genes have you excited these days as you do look forward and as you are creating, working forward and looking at even working with double or triple hets?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff, I mean, I don't have any like brand new recessive or even Kodak. Like I don't have Cosmos in my collection. I don't have Tornado or anything like that. I actually don't even have a Monsoon in my collection yet. But I've got a lot of stuff. I'm working on some really cool triple hets right now. Like I've got a Orange Dream Sunset male that I'm breeding to some Ultramel Pied het hypos. So I'm hoping to get some nice triple hets and potentially quad hets out of that. Also breeding that same snake into a Toffee Pied. So I'm trying to increase my Sunset production a bit. And I know like doing the triple recessive thing using triple hets, it's going to be a long road, but I've got some strategies that I'm going to use partly with Charlie from shedtesting.com. I see.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Charlie's awesome.
He is awesome.
I sent him a boatload of sheds about a couple of weeks ago, and he's texting me or messaging me at like 10:30 on a Sunday night, like, "Oh, dude, I here's some of the results." I'm like, Charlie, stop working. It's 10:30 on Sunday night. You don't need to be doing this. Like, just chill out. I told you I'm not in any hurry for these. Just whenever you get the chance. And but yeah, he's really good, and he's pretty quick about getting results back too.
That's exactly why, like, I sought him out to when that spot came open on the banner. I was like, Charlie's the guy, and it's exactly what you just mentioned. Like, he's an entrepreneur. He figured it out, but it's that I don't know when I'm with you. I don't know when he sleeps. I get results at 2 a.m. Sometimes I'll get a message of, hey, can we catch up on this business part, or can we talk about these details? Get back to me when you can. I'm like, what are you doing up? What am I doing up? What are we doing here? Exactly. But he's the guy doing it. And anyway, and it's killer service. Like you say, he's fast about getting them back. Absolutely. I mean, the urgency he treats customers with is really commendable and fantastic. Yep. Yeah. So that was going to be one of my questions this evening was, it's crazy. It's what a quantum leap. 2.5 years ago, we didn't have shed testing. So like what, I see that you're using it. Is it something that you enjoy? Is it something that you think has handicapped you as somebody with all of your knowledge? Now the rest of us are just able to catch up right away like that. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I would say to some extent it kind of levels the playing field a little bit. Mm-hmm. Somebody that's got a little bit of ambition and wants to collect those sheds and send them in, it could really, it's going to propel everything forward so fast, and it's going to be hard to keep up with. Like I already feel like I can't keep up with some of the other guys in this industry that's producing the cutting edge stuff. And it's just going to make it all the harder to do. And, but I think it is good. I mean, it's definitely efficient. You can go through and like, I haven't even gone through any of the results of the test. I probably sent him 40 sheds and I haven't gone through any of those yet. I actually asked him if he could just make a spreadsheet so I can get them all in one place so that I can actually go through the list and find the snake and mark them with what they actually are. But it'll definitely make things a lot more efficient as far as production. But I'm kind of one more for gearing my breedings towards doing things where I'm going to know what the results are, and not have to like hope that I hit on a double recessive that's het for another gene. I will be doing some of that, and I'll be of course testing all that. Back in the old day, you had to just do breeding trials to see what was in some of these things. And that, that just doesn't happen anymore, doesn't need to happen anymore.
Yeah. It saves the amount of holdbacks you have to keep, right? I mean, by the time, once you do compare it, because I guess take us back. I mean, because to make new stuff, you can't just go out and buy it if it doesn't exist. So if you want to make the new stuff, you got to make the hets. And what you would just hold back whole clutches, or I guess a certain number of primo males, but then all of the females, and hope that they hit on them after 2-3 years.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll go back. I've told the story lots of times, but when I first started breeding ball pythons, so back 25 years ago, I was a pretty well-known gecko breeder. My original website was crestedgecko.com.
Right.
I've been producing crested geckos since the late 90s, producing leopard geckos since the mid 90s, and I was producing thousands of them, and pretty well known for them. And somebody offered me 10 adult breeder female ball pythons for 100 lot of normal baby leopard geckos. And at the time, I didn't have any ball pythons. I had them over the years, and every once in a while, like, I'd buy a group of like the farm raised baby females, and I'd start raising them up. And then I'm like, I'm never going to do anything with these. I'd sell them like 6 months later. I probably did that, 3 or 4 times in the 90s, back before I ever thought I could afford or ever get a pied or an albino or anything like that.
Right.
But then eventually, by the year 2000, I decided, okay, I want to start breeding ball pythons. So I did this trade. I got these 10 normal females. I might actually still have one of them now. I think I do.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not that I need a normal female right now.
Right.
But anyway, so I could only afford, because I was just a lowly gecko and bearded dragon breeder. I didn't have, thousands of dollars to put into these ball pythons, but I bought a het albino male. I bought a het caramel male, a het jala phasanthic male, and a het piebald male. I bought all those, and the average price was, I think, $1,000 a piece. So just for a normal looking het out of all those. And I bred those to these normal females. And I kept every single female that I produced and raised them all up, and either bred them back to the original het males, or in some cases, like the albino, I actually bought a visual albino male a couple of years later.
In the meantime, yeah.
And I bred those, and I ended up proving some of them out. Well, one of the 50% possible het albino females that I had, she was being really stubborn. It took me 10 years before I got her to breed. I was breeding her to an albino male every year, 10 years, and that damn thing proved out to be a normal.
Oh my God.
So, but I mean, I was stubborn. I mean, I can be a pretty stubborn person, and you're not leaving my collection until I prove you out. Right. You're either het albino or you're a normal. There's no way to tell, obviously. So I bred her year after year after year, and she just would not go. And then finally she went. And at this point, albinos were probably $600 or $700 a piece or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. I finally got eggs. She better prove out, because I put a lot of time and money and anguish into her. And every baby is a normal. I'm like, okay, you're out the door. I'm done with you. So but back then, I couldn't afford to buy, $10,000 snakes like that. Like, I had to buy the het males, and I had to take the slow route to get to the point where I was, producing some of these morphs. And then eventually I started being able to buy some of the more expensive morphs. But yeah, I mean, it was hard to first get started without the shed testing issue.
Right.
But holding back a bunch of possible hets and saying, oh, this could either be a het pied or it could be a normal. Sitting there. And, obviously now we know how to tell het pieds, not with 100% being assured, but, for the most part, if you look at a normal,
which one to keep. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So,
right.
Things have really changed with breeding and breeding strategies and stuff. It's just so different now than it used to be.
I can remember. So I had a couple normal ball pythons, not to breed, just as pets in my college time. Mm-hmm. And I can remember the store in Gainesville, Florida, and it might have been, I remember seeing him in there because he's a recognizable guy. I don't know if it was his store or if he was just in there. Maybe he was the supplier, but Ben Cole was in there. And this is this would have been 97, 98-ish, somewhere in there. But I remember that they had a pied in there, and it blew my mind. But I also remember thinking to myself, I could buy like a Mercedes, or I could buy that snake. Like, and I don't remember if it was 30 grand or 100 grand or whatever it was, but as my broke college 1997, 98 self, I just remember being like, it blew my mind on so many levels, both from looking at it, but then just considering it. And then in, COVID time, I go to a Repticon with my son, and there's pieds everywhere. I'm like, anybody can buy these or have these? I was like, I'm in. That's what's going to happen. I'm going for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. Like when I think back, and, the first really expensive snake that we ever bought was our first spider ball python. We bought it from Kevin McCurley at Nerd.
Yeah.
Paid $17,500 for him. It was just a normal spider.
Wow.
And,
1,000 or 100?
What's that?
17,000?
Yeah.
Wow,
17,000. Okay. So at the very first NARBC in Tinley in October of 2001, Kevin's booth was right across the aisle from mine. I had a table along the perimeter full of geckos, and I might have had a few snakes, but I wasn't known for producing snakes back then. I really didn't produce much back then. But I had a lot of geckos. And anyway, Kevin's table was right across the aisle from mine. And he had the first 2 bumblebees that I'd ever seen in my life there. And I just remember just being in awe about them because, I'd seen pictures of albinos. I'd seen a couple in person, pieds, a couple other things, but nothing ever like a bumblebee. And that was like a double, it was a double visual, basically, dominant and codon, but to look at it, and I was amazed by them. And I'm like, they had a $60,000 price tag on them. And I just remember thinking to myself, someday I'm going to see if I can produce those. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how long. It might be 20 years from now. I don't know, but I'm going to try to produce those. So a couple of years later, I bought a spider male and I bought a pastel female. I think she was a yearling at the time. And a couple of years after that, I bred them and I hatched out 2 bumblebees. So luckily I produced 2 because, like I was saying before, I'm a collector probably before I'm a keeper. So I feel compelled to keep the first of everything new that I produce.
Right.
And, so I kept that first bumblebee and I sold her sibling. And I remember I sold her for $15,000. Wow. So she almost single-handedly recouped the entire investment on the spider. And the rest of the clutch, I would say, probably got us to break even on the project overall. And we were also producing other clutches with spiders in them and stuff. But, I didn't know what I knew. Like, if I would have known 25 years ago what I know now about how just how to breed ball pythons, not necessarily like the genes that I have to get into or anything like that, but just the mechanics of breeding a ball python. If I would, and I'm raising a baby up to maturity, if I would have known that back then, I probably could have made 10 times the amount of money that I did. I had Mojaves very early on. I had pinstripes pretty early on. I had spider. I had albino pretty early on. Like, if I would have known how to maximize production on those, I can't even, like, it kind of almost makes me sick looking back on like what I could have done if I would have just known that, hey, you know what, you can actually get a male ball python to breed by the time they're 7 months old instead of waiting for 2 years by feeding them once a week. Maybe I feed them twice a week or even a little bit more, and I can get them to breed quicker. Little things like that, had I known, I could have done some different things. I just want to go back to that bumblebee female, but bumblebee female, I still have her.
Oh, dude, that's cool.
She's going to turn 20 years old this summer, and I still have her, and she's a pet. I obviously don't need to breed a bumblebee anymore, so I haven't bred her probably in over 10 years, but she's just one of those snakes that I can't get rid of. I've
got not too many, but I've got a couple that way that are just like, I've got an Orange Dream het pied boy that he was one of the best hatchlings that I got at the very beginning. I don't need him anymore, but he's just a calm, docile, and I don't know. I know there's all sorts of mysticism around lines of Orange Dream and all that, but he's a beautiful example, even as an adult. And I'm like, you know what? I ever really need them, or if I really need some quality OD injected anywhere, I can use them, but I haven't bred them in years now.
Yeah.
Let's see, I had two topics in mind. I don't know. I'll just go randomly on one of them. I guess one of them's kind of quick. How you talked about feeding and logistics and that stuff. How long do you, or when do you see some females going? I know the typical answer is, between 2 and 3 years, and I think we all fit into that. But do you lean more towards one or the other, or like you say right now, you have so many breeding females that it's not a rush, or where do you find yourself on that?
I have so many breeding females that most of them aren't too much of a rush. I'll normally wait until they're close to 1,500 grams or around 2.5 years. Like I don't have a hard, I don't look at a snake and say, well, you're not 1,500 grams. I'm not even going to try to breed you. If I have a female that's been a picky feeder her whole life and she's maybe like 1,350 grams, but she's 3 years old already, she's getting bred for sure. She could give me, 4 eggs. She might give me 6 or 7. I had a first time, I had a pied, actually just hatched this clutch out. I had a pied triple het hypo ultramel clown female that I bred to a pied triple het hypo ultramel clown male. And she's probably only a little bit, maybe slightly over 2 years old right now, but she gave me, I think it was 8 eggs.
Wow.
And so she's fairly small. I mean, I think she was about 1,500 grams, but she's fairly small. And I actually just hatched her babies out they're starting to shed right now. So there's going to be some shed testing involved with that. Speaking of that, I've got one of the babies actually died in the egg. It poked its head out, stuck its neck out, and then it was dead the next day. But I got a hypo ultramel pied, 2 ultramel pieds, 3 hypo pieds, and a normal pied, and they're all, het for or possible het for clown and all the other genes. And, so I'm going to get all those tested, and I'm actually doing a YouTube video where I'm splicing together like I did I cut the eggs. I did a egg cutting video segment, and then I did a reveal segment showing what babies actually hatched, and then I'm going to do a post shed and shed testing result segment just to kind of help promote Charlie a little bit too, and say, well, I had all these tested through shedtesting.com, and this is the result. So this was the pairing. These are the visual babies that hatch, and this is what they're all the genes that they're carrying. So, but anyway, she was she wasn't a big female, but I've had some pretty small females give me decent clutches already. So as far as the ages and sizes and everything, I don't really have a set.
Yeah.
And it kind of, a part of it kind of depends on how badly I want to breed that female too. If it's something that I really am excited about producing, usually I'll feed that snake a little bit more often too, and to get a little bit more size on her quicker. So, I very well may end up breeding her at around 2 years old. I've had females back in the old days with the het albinos. I had a het albino female that I think she bred before she was 18 months old. And this is back when I wasn't, when I still don't feed real heavily, but, back before I even knew you could really even do that. And she gave me, I think it was 9 eggs on her first clutch.
Oh man.
So, I've had others give me 3. So, it's
exactly.
You just don't know, but yeah.
Do you get superstitious, or do you have a preference on what rodent you feed those breeding females? Or if you have a really special female where you're come on, you got to go for me this year, what's the rodent that what's the preferred rodent you're going to give to that one?
Whatever they eat. I'm a complete believer that give the ball pythons whatever they want to eat. And, some of mine will eat rats for part of the year, and then they will only take mice, or they'll take ASFs. Some of them go back and forth. And a lot of my females, once they lay a clutch and I take the eggs away and clean them up and everything, the next time I offer them a meal, they'll take a rat. But previous to when they were breeding, they would only take ASFs or mice. So, and a lot of times it just depends on what I have available too. If I've got a surplus of pretty good sized ASFs, I guess you're getting an ASF this week. Otherwise, I have a lot of rats. And some of my breeder females, if I get real tight on rodents and I've got some jumbo breeder, like retired mice, I'll give them a mouse just to give them something. I'm not worried at all about a snake sticking on a certain food type. I think a ball python that wants to eat will eat pretty much anything you put in front of them. A ball python that is kind of on the fence, like she's kind of looking and she's like, well, I'm kind of hungry, but not really. Maybe she would turn her nose at a rat, but she'd take a mouse or an ASF. And then I do have a few that are picky and they'll only eat ASFs or only eat mice, but not very many. I'd say 90% of my adult female ball pythons will take whatever I give them at any time.
I was going to say, I regret how blown out of proportion, because it's not a myth. I know that there's some out there that do get kind of stuck or really stubborn, but man, I hear it all the time. And I love feeding ASS because of how much they love them and how dependable they are. I don't necessarily know if I buy into that that's their natural food or that they're any more healthy or any than that, but they're consistent and they work for me to raise up. I'm horribly allergic to, well, rodents in general, but particularly rats, but ASFs I can, if I have a ventilator, I can handle pretty well.
Okay.
So for all those reasons, I like live ASFs, but I feed frozen rats. And while we're shouting out people from Cold Blooded Cafe is where I get my frozen ones. So, but yeah, at shows, it's, you mentioned it earlier. I think it's worth repeating. Anything that I'm trying to sell, I try and get on frozen thawed just so I can avoid the, oh, well, it's on this, it's going to be hooked on that. I'm like, no, if, like you say, I think if they're set up right and conditioned right and put in the right enclosures, they're going to eat when they're ready to eat. Yeah.
My baby, the stuff that I'm selling, a lot of them I'll feed mice to just because I can produce them in bigger numbers and if I have to buy them, they're much cheaper. Like a mouse, it's the same size as a rat. It's going to cost half the price. And when you're already spending $1,000 a week to feed your baby room, to up that to $2,000 a week just to give everything a little, like a rat pup instead of a weaned or a small adult mouse is really hard to do. But I would say 90% of the snakes that I'm typically feeding mice to will take a rat without any problem. And occasionally I'll give some of them. I have too many to give them all rats at some point, but I'll give some of them rats. Sometimes if we have surplus, like hopper sized ASFs, I'll feed them those. And I'm not worried at all. Like I kind of go back and forth between different things based on what I have. And almost all of mine will take a frozen thawed mouse or rat anytime I offer it to them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not, I don't really think they typically do get stuck. If they're hungry and they'll eat whatever you put in front of them. If you're feeding them all the time, like, some breeders and some hobbyists think that, you have to just stuff your ball python silly. They got to always be full. Mm-hmm. I first of all, I don't think that's healthy for them. Ball pythons do live through that a lot better than most snakes, but no snake should have a continuous chain of food in their stomachs going into their intestines and continuously having poop in their intestines. They need to clean out sometimes. Like if you're feeding them all the time, they always are in some state of digestion, and that's not healthy for them to do that. So to feed, like for people, they're buying a snake from me and it's like, well, why is the snake this age and it's only this big when it could be this big? Like, well, first of all, I don't have the time to feed the snakes that heavily, but also it's not really the best thing for them. You can do it, and a lot of breeders do it to get their production high and to get them to breed quickly. But if you're actually looking at what's best for the snake, it's not necessarily feeding them 3 times a week to get, it's not really my job to get a 6-month-old snake up to 400 grams or 500 grams. Right. Especially if it's something like, if I just like a normal pie that I'm going to sell to somebody as a pet, they don't need that thing to be 400 grams at 6 months old. No. So, but yeah, I really think ball pythons, most of them, I think the pickiness factor there, obviously there are some individuals, but I think the majority of them, at least in my experience, most of mine will eat anything I put in front of them at any time.
I think, like, by and large, I think the reach of social media, at least for sales and marketing and building our communities, is fantastic. I think sometimes we just stand in a circle and shoot each other in the feet, though. Because, like, I can remember, like, probably the last time that we were on the show, the big thing was people were anti-power feeding. And then, like, now it's, oh, you're not feeding enough. You're maintenance feeding, and they're too small, like you alluded to. Like, if we look at their actual caloric needs in the wild, or even probably less in our enclosures, like it's really hard to underfeed a ball python if you're feeding them at all, really.
Yeah, I mean, find me 1,000-gram yearling ball python in the wild,
right?
You know, unless that thing found the jackpot of all rodent burrows or something, and it's just got unlimited food. You know, a yearling ball python in the wild is probably going to be 300 grams,
right?
You know, and that's only if it found bigger food items. I mean, they're not made to grow that fast or get that big. Look at most other species. You do that with like a boa constrictor, you're going to kill it. You do that with a green tree python, you're going to kill it for sure. There's so many other species that if you try to feed them the way people feed ball pythons, you will kill them. And even ball pythons, I mean, you can overdo it and just line their intestines up with poop or whatever, and or get them so fat that they can't function. Their kidneys and their liver, they're all their intestines and stuff, and organs they're going to have problems, heart issues and stuff. I mean, it's just not good for. I mean, it's not good for us. Not good for anything to really just be in a continuous state of digestion.
Yeah, I don't know the medical and the scientific ins and outs of it, but I do know, like, I know that we put a lot of pressure on getting them to breed faster. And I think that that's probably an indication that it's not the best thing for them, kind of deal, you know?
Ball pythons do seem to tolerate it a lot better than most species, though. I mean, you can get ball pythons up pretty big, pretty fast if you want to. But I mean, my goal isn't necessarily, like, even my holdbacks. My best holdbacks are usually fed, I would say, on the average of probably almost twice a week. But a lot of my snakes, I feed them once a week. And even like my breeders or my snakes that I'm growing up to breed, but usually for like the first maybe 5 or 6 months, I'll generally, if I have leftover rodents after feeding, like I feed all my holdbacks on Monday. And then on Wednesdays, I feed all the babies that are for sale. And if I have leftovers at that point, I'll usually run through the holdbacks again and give them a second meal. But other than that, like once they get bigger, like once they hit probably like 600 or 700 grams, they very rarely ever get a second meal. It's like whatever you can grow on one meal a week is what you're going to do. And I know I'm not pushing it too hard, but I know you're going to grow. And like I said, it kind of helps that I have so many snakes that if any one particular snake doesn't make it up to breeding, it generally doesn't matter that much for me. But
right.
I think it's just better for the snake overall.
How much do you find yourself? I don't know. I don't know you well enough. Part of me sees you as a guy that you do your own thing and you have your own path and you've done very, very well at it. How much do you try and keep up with what the new stuff is? And I know you said you hadn't bought anything in 2 years. How much do you even follow that though? Do you make time to see what the trends are, or do you just stay kind of focused on what you have in front of you, or is it both? Where's your interest in that?
It's both. I mean, I have my own ideas of what I want to produce. So I try not to let what other people are doing influence me too much, but I can't ignore what other people are doing and what the trends are. I'm always listening. I mean, I listen to my share of podcasts and I watch my share of YouTube videos. I don't get to watch as many as I would like because most of the time when I'm working, I can't watch them. And when I'm at home, most of the time when I get home from work at night, like, last thing I want to do is think about
go see any more ball pythons.
I kind of need to have the mental break, but right. I do watch some videos and see what other people are producing, and depending on the video, like some of them I'm just like, how the hell are you producing that already? Like I'm blown away by some of the stuff that some other breeders are producing, and I would love to be producing stuff like that too, but I have my own projects that I'm working on. I do like to see what other people are producing, and it gives me ideas for things that I can do with my own collection. Maybe a certain gene I want to bring in, or a certain combination, or like maybe I can make something similar to that with a different combination of
Right, a little
genes.
different, yeah.
Yeah. So, that kind of stuff I do quite a bit.
Yeah, that's always the thing to me is like I feel like I'm pretty good at saying I can't control what other people are doing, and I can't. The old comparison is the thief of joy or whatever, that mindset where like you'll go nuts if you just compare yourself all the time.
Yeah.
But I do like seeing like, all right, how do I get there? But then what would I like that to look like? And like, how do I get inspired by that piece or that animal rather than just like, oh, I want that. So now I got to buy the things to make that right away. Like I can't, I can't afford to live that way, but B, it'll drive me bonkers if I live that way too.
The problem with trends, like if you're trying to chase somebody else's project, you're never going to catch up. And by the time you get caught up where you can produce that animal, they've already moved on. There's several steps ahead already, or working on a different project completely. And you can't always be trying to play the catch up game. And I'm guilty of it to some extent too. Like I look at what some other people are producing and I'm like, okay, I really, really want to produce that because I like the look of that animal.
Right. Yeah. You love it though. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'll sometimes do that, but I always try to remind myself like, okay, I'm not going to be able to catch up, and all I'm going to be doing is trying to chase. So by the time I produce that, they're going to be going for like a tenth of what they are right now because they'll have already moved on to the next big thing. And you can't predict what the next big thing is going to be necessarily. So it's almost impossible. Like if you could go forward 5 years in time and see what the hot things are, then you start working on them right now. And that'd be very, very handy to be able to do. But unfortunately, you can't. So
we got to get Charlie on that. That's his next endeavor. Is get us
time machine would be nice.
So, yeah,
that would be really cool.
You and I could be the test pilots on it.
Oh yeah, I'm all up for it. I would love to see what's going to be cool in 5 years because I'd start stockpiling it now and see what I can do. But no, I mean it's just there's so many different projects, and I really think that people should kind of get their own ideas of what's cool and not necessarily follow everybody else in towards a certain trend. Like, figure out your own spin on things and do something that nobody else has tried before, or that at least not that you know of. It's not necessarily like, oh, okay, I got to make this gene because this person's making it, or these people are already producing these. Do something different. Everybody, do your own thing, I think, and that would really help with diversity in the ball python community. Exactly. If everybody started working on more unique projects than everybody chasing like the next Pompeii or whatever, like, yeah, it's a cool animal, but by the time, if you're starting off from scratch right now, by the time you produce them, they're going to be $500 a piece. And so I really think it's better to say, and some of it comes with experience. I mean, like, I can generally look at different single genes and say like, okay, I can envision what that's going to look like in a clown or in in whatever project. You're not always right. I mean, I've swung at a lot of different projects, and some of them I'm like, really, that's all it is. And then I hit other ones. I'm like, wow, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
And there's a lot of variances within that. And then if you produce something like that, then you have to hope that other people think it's cool too. And that's the real thing, is like, when I produce something, I'm like, I really, really like this. I wonder how other people are going to think about it. And I produce some things, like I just hatched out this last fall, I hatched out a banana hurricane spot nose calico yellow belly clown.
Did you just post that recently?
I posted her a few times.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Wild looking. And
it is wild. Yeah.
300 grams now. Just amazing looking. And it's like, okay. And then based on the reaction that I've seen from posting it, and I've had people share it too, the reaction has been huge. So I'm like, okay, well, that was a hit. Like I need to be able to produce more of those. The problem is that snake is more complex than a Pompeii. So the chances of hitting on it again, and that one is a female too. So technically she's for sale, but I have her up at a really high price tag, and actually just marked her up a little bit because I don't want to sell her. So, right. But I have the ability to produce her again, but it's just a matter of, am I really going to hit on, I believe it's what I say, 5 codons, banana, hurricane, calico, spot nose, yellow belly. So 5 codoms plus clown. To hit on all that into one animal again is going to take something.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But like that was an example of something where I went off in a completely different direction than what a lot of people would do, and put, calico and yellow belly together, I think is an awesome combo in clowns. And then if you put those other genes in there, you really get something wild out of it. So yeah, I mean, that was a hit, but I've had tons and tons of misses over the years too, where I produced stuff that I was really disappointed in.
That was an interesting detail you said about thinking something's cool, but then you found a way to quantify it as well. Cause it's really hard to quantify cool. Like we know this, like whether it's rock and roll or whether it's snakes, it's hard to quantify cool. That's a really good way that you said that. I was going to bring up, I would say he's a friend, but I know certainly an acquaintance of yours, but Doug Knacker. Doug is he's one of the best at, like, he'll tell me about something. I'm like, this has got to be cool. And I'm like, it's pretty good. But his enthusiasm is really fantastic. And I don't necessarily have that in me. He's an excellent promoter that way.
I've known Doug for many, many years. He actually got his first ball pythons from me probably, it's probably 15 years ago now. He only, he lives in my town. So I see Doug pretty regularly. Yeah, no,
he's a great guy, and I've interacted with him a whole lot, and he's been very kind to me. So I know no issues with that. But and I think that's what's needed, though. I think when you talk to him about projects, he's just like, and there's this, and I'm like, it's true. I'm not as good at that as he is. But that was interesting. You talked about how you quantified.
During the hatching season, he'll come to my shop every couple of weeks, and during the hatching season, I always love showing him all the cool stuff that's hatching to get his reaction to it. Yeah, and see what he thinks about it. And we collaborated on the Sunset project a couple of years ago, and that he had a like a pastel orange dream Enchi het male, and I had a couple of normal possible het female sunsets, and we bred them together and split the babies. And that's where I've got a pair of sunsets here that with some other genes in them that I'm breeding the male right now, and the female I'm growing up. But so that's how I got my sunsets, is from his male breeding.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
So,
and he's Hissy Fit, right? Hissy Fit Reptiles. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'd be remiss not to mention his brand as well. Yeah. And I know you guys, I don't know if you've been together or right next to each other at that Rothschild show, but I know that you guys are close there. Yeah,
I didn't vend at the last one. He actually killed it at the last Rothschild show.
He told me, he messaged me. He was like, where were you? I crushed it. Yeah. Like, thanks.
Well, I started thinking like, okay, it's on Mother's Day. It's a beautiful day in May. Up in the northern Midwest, you don't get that many great weekends. So I'm like, nobody's going to come to the show. I'm not, I can't give up. I don't want to, get in the doghouse with my wife and stuff. And plus my mom had just had knee surgery recently. I wanted to go down and visit her and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to spend half the day on Saturday packing for the show and then going to the show on Sunday. Like, I'm just going to bow out of this one. And I honestly didn't think it'd be that well. And I texted Doug later. I'm like, hey, Doug, how'd the show go? He's like, I killed it. I sold like 16 snakes at the show. I'm like,
he was like, it was my best show. Man. He's like, it's my best show ever. And it was just a little old Rothschild. I'm like,
there's hardly anybody with ball pythons here. I'm like, yeah, you're welcome, Doug.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have been sitting right next to you with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't make that trip either. But anyhow, such is life. Garrick, how about a couple just quick fire questions on logistics as we wrap up the last segment here? And audience, if you would do me a favor, I don't want to interrupt time with Garrick and he's busy. Check out the sponsors. They literally keep the lights on. They're people within our industry that support us, and they make this program come to you ad-free. No more interruptions while you're cleaning. Your hands are wet in the sink. You can't skip an ad and you're stuck through an ad. It's all gone, and it's all because of those sponsors. So check them out, please. Take good care of those folks. They're good to me and they're good to this industry. So, Garrick, I love logistics, and maybe some other people find it boring, but and you have a massive operation, so things at scale always interest me very, very much. So, like I say, just some quick fire stuff. What substrate do you use?
I use cocoa chips.
You do use cocoa chips. And then what's like your cleaning routine? I'm guessing obviously it must be spot cleaning. How often on full tubs? How often spot clean? What's that look like for you?
I do full tub cleanings as needed. Sometimes some snakes are messier than others. Sometimes they can make a mess more than others, so it's kind of based on the individual. Every time you pull a drawer out on cleaning day, you just don't know. And depending on what you see, that'll tell you what you need to do. Typically in a typical week, I'll spot clean. I'll add substrate as needed, mist it down and then change waters and stuff. I do that once a week at least. If I'm going through and showing up somebody's snakes and I see a chunk of cocoa chips in the water or poop in the cage or something like that, I'm compelled. I obviously have to clean that.
Clean it, yeah.
But, with the number of snakes that I have, I can't check all of them multiple times a week. So we generally, I like to feed one day and then go through and water and clean the next day. So that way, all the snakes that poop an hour after they ate, you go through the next day and you're cleaning that up, so they're not sitting in it, for the next few days before you get to that again. So yeah, it's more. We have to, in order to maintain a collection of the size, we're very structured on what we do in each day. Like just for a real quick rundown, on Mondays, I go to the shop in the morning. I'm watering I answer emails and get shipments together if I need to do that. And then it's feeding the holdbacks and then watering and cleaning the holdbacks. I do that the same day. Tuesdays, I go to the shop. I'm getting emails and all that stuff done in the morning. In the afternoon, I'm feeding all the breeders. Wednesdays, all the breeders get watered and cleaned. And then on Wednesdays, all the babies, for sale babies, all get fed. And then on Thursdays and Fridays, all the for sale babies get watered and cleaned. So that by the end of the day, Friday, everything is done for the week, and I can feel good about not having to spend like all weekend in there doing that kind of stuff. I really try to keep my free time, actual free time, and not, I've got to do more work or whatever. So we just try to get it all done between Monday and Friday. Somebody has to be at the shop every day of the weekend to make sure that, check the incubator to see if anything's hatching, or check females to see if anybody laid, just general, observations, go through the rodent room, make sure there aren't any floods or anything like that, make sure that there aren't any thermostat alarms going off or anything. So we have somebody at the shop 7 days a week, but usually on the weekends, I'm only me or my employee Chris will only be there for at most like an hour on the weekends.
Yeah.
Typically. Unless you walk into the rodent room and there's water all over the floor, then you're going to be there for a while.
All day. Yeah.
But that never happens. So
good. I think people should really think about that, because it's so easy as trying to the grind culture and this entrepreneur mindset, which is important and it's something I embrace, but finding time to be using systems and processes to guarantee that you have time for yourself, I think is so important. And I've told people, and even my wife, I want to do this, but I don't want to be owned by it. If I'm going to be owned by something, I can make a whole lot more money. And frankly, I can do it easier and I'm better at it. I could go run resorts and private golf clubs and make a ton more money if I'm going to be owned by something. So that really rang true what you were saying. And I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm glad that came up. Okay. I've been waiting, I think 2.5 years to ask this question, and I hope that you still use it, but maybe you'll tell me why you don't use it. I haven't checked your videos recently, but I always remember as many colors of Post-it notes as you have in your logo being on all the tubs.
Yeah.
What do they mean, and how do you get them to not blow off with good air circulation in your facility?
I'll answer that first. I use tape.
I was like, dry forced air in the winter. I know you got to have something more than just Post-its on there.
No, they'd be all over the floor. Yeah, no, I use Post-its because, back 25 years ago when I first started this, there weren't really any fancy labels or anything. It wasn't as easy to come up with stuff like that. Right. So I just use Post-its and I just write the snake down, the ID number, the hatch date, the sex, and everything that I need on that Post-it. And I'll tape that to the tub. And then based on where that Post-it is located on the tub, that'll tell me what the snake is eating. If it's on the left-hand side up on the rim, then I know that snake is a new hatchling and it hasn't eaten yet. Once it's eaten, it goes to the center along the rim, like the handle. And then once it's on frozen thawed, it goes to the other side. And then once it's on the website, it goes down on the main surface of the tub. So like I've got a system, and it might not make sense to a lot of people, and there's probably other ways to do it, but it allows me to look at a hatchling rack, and I know exactly what the status of every single snake is in there instantly.
Yep.
Post-its, they do, they can get wet when you're spraying out tubs or whatever. You can, so it's not the, I would say I could probably improve upon what I'm doing right now. Just for the numbers that I have, when when you walk into my hatchling room and there's like 1,200 tubs in there, not necessarily, well, luckily right now they're not all full because I haven't been hatching much lately, but to me it was the quickest and easiest way to do a labeling system for everything. But yeah, if you just put a Post-it note on the tub, it'd be gone.
It would be gone, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
no, and I had fun with the question, but I certainly wasn't making fun. I think
it's something to be made fun of, actually. It's ridiculous that I do it that way, but yeah, it's easy for me, and everything's on the website anyway, so like it's not like I give out the Post-it notes when I sell the snakes. Maybe somebody comes to the shop and buys something.
Right. Here's the Post-it notes. Yeah. No, I mean, we used color codes in kitchens. I mean, each day of the week had its own, like we called them day dots, that it would say the day on it, but they were the color. We didn't look at what the day was. We knew which order to go on that. I actually, in leadership, one of my simplest leadership lectures was keep it simple. We run 10,000-pound hunks of metal blowing internal combustion, and we put ourselves in the middle of them, and we run on red, yellow, green, and striped and dotted lines on the roads. Like colors and symbols and signals are very, very effective. So
I wish Post-its actually came in more colors than they do. So the different colors that I use is because when I hatch babies out, I try to keep the colors consistent with the base morph. Like all of my pieds are light blue. All
really?
Of my albinos are bright yellow. I keep it like that so that, because ideally every rack in my hatching room would have all of the same base gene in that rack.
Okay.
But during the hatching season, when I'm really filling up fast and there's a rack that's got a few open spots, but not the rack that I need it to be in, I'll put them wherever I can find
right. Wherever you got space, you got to use it.
So then if I'm looking, like say somebody buys an albino leopard yellow belly, I know right away, okay, start looking for the bright yellow Post-its, and I can figure out, like, that all automatically reduces the number of tubs that I have to look at by like 75%.
Yeah.
And then also, because I'm the one feeding everything in that room every week, I get to know where the snakes are. So as long as nobody's messing with me and starts moving them around, I usually remember, like, oh, that particular clown combo male is in rack number 12, because I just remember, because I remember from watching it eat, or seeing it feed or whatever. So but the colors that's mostly to help me to figure out, like, all the lavenders have a purple Post-it. All of the, like, I've got them all kind of figured out to where I can find them much easier. Otherwise, you walk into that room and you're looking for one particular snake. You're never gonna find it. I mean, and even with the color coding, sometimes I can gloss over a snake. Like, I've looked for like 15 minutes for I shipped out a bunch of snakes today, and I'm looking through and I'm like, where is this snake? Like, I know I put it in. I have a reservation rack, a couple racks actually, where I put all the snakes that are sold when they sell. So I know, like, when it's time to ship them, I know those are the only 2 racks that I need to look through. And sometimes even just with 2 racks, I'm looking through like 80 or 90 babies, and I still cannot find this particular snake. I know it's in there. So and I did anything to help me save time like that is what I do.
Man, thanks for humoring me on it and the insight. I did not think it would be tied to the genes. That's an interesting angle on that.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Garrick, I promise to keep it under 90 minutes, and we're knocking on that door right now. Thanks for, I mean,
fast.
I know, man. And that's always a good sign. No dead air, all just content straight ahead. Thanks for being here tonight. If people don't know where they can find you, what's your website? Where's the best place to find what you got available? How do they get in touch with you? All that good stuff.
Well, RoyalConstrictorDesigns.com is my website. Everything that's on my website is also on Morph Market and vice versa. I'm actually able to, with a couple clicks of my mouse, I'm able to upload everything from my website directly onto Morph Market. So the two sites are pretty much the same. When a snake sells off my website, it's automatically deleted those, and I have to manually remove them from Morph Market unless I do like a bulk update. So my website is the best place to see the exact availability, although I update my Morph Market page several times a week, so it's usually pretty accurate. Otherwise, on Instagram and Facebook, I'm RoyalConstrictorDesigns.com. I've got my own YouTube channel. I've had a YouTube channel for probably, I don't know, close to 15 years now, and that's the Royal Constrictor. So I've got lots of cool videos, and if you go back and look at some of those older videos, like wow, showing off these awesome new regular bananas that I got. But no, it's it's been very fun for me to have that channel. So yeah, basically the Royal Constrictor on YouTube, RoyalConstrictorDesigns.com for website, Facebook and Instagram, and I'm on Morph Market as well. Pretty easy to find if you're looking.
Yeah. No, you're definitely easy to find. And Garrick, thank you so much. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you've always been generous with your insight and conversation and time. I'd love to have you back. I hope that we don't wait 2.5 years to do it again.
Yeah, sooner.
I appreciate it so much. I will see you. I'll definitely see you at Tinley, I'm assuming. I don't know. I might make it out to Schaumburg. We'll see. If I go, I'll just be spectating. Okay. I'll see you around, and thank you so much for being here tonight, Garrick.
I haven't signed up for Schaumburg yet. I'm not sure about it. I do want to try to make it out to another cold-blooded expo though too. And I used to do them all the time, and I just haven't been. I think I've only been back once since we reopened after COVID. So yeah, I definitely would like to come out and see everybody out there. I do miss doing that show. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you at a show before Tinley, but if not, I'll definitely see you there.
Yeah. I just from time and logistics, I haven't done much of the Wisconsin shows this year. Some of the same stuff you were talking about. Once you start looking at what's selling where and where I can focus my energy and attention, that's going to get the biggest results, and where I built the brand, and where I'm not vending against Garrick DeMeyer across the room, all of those things. And I mean that, and with all appreciation, so that Rothschild show, I either have to get a hotel, especially for the winter ones. It's about 4 hours home. And, and I don't remember exactly what months, but January, February, March, driving home, that could be pretty dangerous. Yeah. Up here, and people don't know what we're talking about. We're talking about sub-zero temperatures and icy dark roads with deer flying across the road. So, things like that, I start going, maybe I got to look at other options. So I haven't done those, but I might get back out there. Who knows?
Well, I mean, if you've got the Cold-Blooded Expo and you've got some others in that area too, I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, I'm in the same boat about going over to shows over there.
Yeah, it's the same to come to the Cold-Blooded. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll see you soon either way. And Garrick, as always, I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you so much, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, Adam.
All right. If you don't mind, stick around for just 1 second. And otherwise, audience, see you same time, same place next week. See you soon.